Hey there, I'm Matt from Chaparral Motorsports, and welcome to our head-to-head premium off-road helmet comparison guide. Let's check this out. So we've narrowed down the field to these 6 helmets, and these are really the best of the best that are out there. These are pro-level, top-dollar helmets, as you're going to find out, and so that's why we want to break down all the features and compare them against each other so that you get a better shopping experience and are buying the helmet that's suited for you. We're also going to break these down into different segments based on similar technology and similar ideas that these helmets share. So with that being said, let's kick this off with a weight comparison. Now we're going to start this with the Shoei VFXW. This weighed in at 3.3 pounds, and let me add that all of these helmets are a size medium except for the Troy Lee SE4. So 3.3 pounds. We move over to the Arai VX Pro 4. This comes in at 3.4 pounds. So there's not much difference there as far as the weight goes. And then we jump to the Lee at 6.5. This is also the smallest shell on the table. This came in at 2.9 pounds. And it's pretty interesting that the next helmet that I have here on the table is the 60 ATR1, being that it's the largest shell compared to all of these helmets here on the table. So automatically you're going to think that this is the heaviest helmet. Well, the opposite's true. This one's actually 3.4 pounds. So just seeing that the shell is the biggest out there, it's actually right in line with the rest of the helmets here on the table, which is pretty interesting. Moving over to the Bell Moto 9 Flex, 3.35 pounds, definitely something that I would expect. Right in the middle of the pack, very impressive. But then, something that completely blows my mind. Keep in mind that this is a size large, the SE4. This is 3 pounds on the mark. Extremely impressive. If you go down to that size medium, you're going to be well under that 3 pound mark. So it's pretty cool to see from Troy Lee. So now let's kick this off with our first head-to-head comparison. First up, the Shoei VFXW versus the Arai VX Pro 4. These two helmets are really the pioneers of a premium off-road riding helmet. They've been around for a very long time, but they haven't changed much over the years. They still use the same technology, the same ideas, and really the same materials. They have had some subtle changes over the years, but that's about it. So these are definitely what I would consider more of that traditional type of technology. Now let's jump into some of the similarities and then we'll talk about the differences. First off, both of these on the table are DOT and Snell approved. You're also going to see premium washable liners that are antimicrobial, moisture wicking, and very soft to the touch, very comfortable to wear. And like I just mentioned, very similar in weight. We have 3.3 pounds on the Shoei and 3.4 in the Arai. And regardless of the construction, they're still using EPS foam. Different densities, of course, but they're still using EPS for your impact protection, and we're going to get more into that in just a second, pull out those differences. You're going to see emergency cheek pads on both of these helmets. You have different designs, of course, but the same concept in mind. You're able to remove the helmet from a downed rider without causing further injury. And last up, they both have breakaway visors to prevent snagging and digging in the event of a crash to create rotational force. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the Shoei and we'll compare it against the Arai. The outer construction of this helmet is using the AIM Plus shell, which is proprietary to Shoei, and that's a blend of fiberglass and other organic fibers to create a strong, durable, lightweight shell. Also on the inside, they're using dual density EPS to address different crash scenarios. So what they do is they take 2 different densities and 2 different molds and put them together as one. The internal liner is all 3D cut, so it has a really nice precise fit. It's going to be very comfortable, hug the jawline very well to optimize the protection. And what we're also going to see here is a lot of ventilation. This is tried and true. It's definitely proven. It vents well in the front all the way through the back, and it also has this pronounced ridge to hold the goggles in place. But that's a potential red flag because that's a really pronounced edge to potentially grab and snag on the dirt in the event of a crash. Now the price point. In a solid color, this is coming in at $463 at full retail. And if you're looking to get a graphic, you're looking upwards of $650, such as this Grant 2. Now I'm going to start with that on the Arai. We're going to jump right into price and work our way up because this is coming in at $599 for a solid color and upwards of $730 for a graphic if that's what you choose. Let me tell you why there's such a significant price jump. First off, the outer construction is made with superfiber, which is said to be 6 times stronger than your traditional fiberglass. So exotic materials equal higher price. Also, it's completely adjustable on the inside. So you have 5mm cheek pads that you can tear away so you can microfit the helmet just right before you have to go buy different cheek pads. The entire shell is as round as it can possibly be, and that's Arai's R75 concept. That idea is to glance over objects rather than bite, snag, and twist the helmet. So that's going to reduce that rotational force. And in doing so, all of these vents are able to shear away from the helmet. That's a design feature. It's not a cop-out. And if you notice, the chin bar is much closer to the face to create that round shape. A lot of people were complaining about that, so that's one of the changes that you've seen over the years. They've taken that vent and moved it to the outside so you have a little bit more room between your face and that chin bar. Another feature that I found very useful on the VFX Pro 4 is the adjustable mouth vent. That's not something you typically see in a motocross helmet. So if you're doing a lot of mud riding, you can close that vent up, or if you just want to control the airflow in general, you can do so as well. Now, the construction of this EPS liner is completely different than the traditional EPS design like the Shoei. You have different densities of foam all mixed together, and they actually put that in one mold, so you don't have any compromise at the seams of those two materials. So that's just another structural integrity thing with this helmet. Arai really prides himself in making the best helmet out there possible, regardless of how it looks or anything. It's all strictly design and safety. So that's really the main differences between these two helmets. Again, you got to consider that price factor, but it is justifiable with the technology that's been put into this helmet. Next up in our head-to-head comparison, the Leatt 6.5 Carbon versus the 6D ATR1. So these two helmets here have very unique ideas behind reducing rotational forces. The Leatt 6.5 utilizes a smaller shell. Less helmet equals less mass, whereas the 6D helmet utilizes a suspension system inside. So that's where they differ, but they're trying to address that rotational force issue, and you're going to hear me talk a lot about that in this video. First, let's talk about the similarities between these two, and then we'll get into the differences. They have breakaway visors with plastic screws. They have very nice plush, moisture-wicking, antimicrobial liners that are fully removable and washable. They also have emergency cheek pads, and what you're also going to notice that both of these models are available in a composite as well as a full carbon version. So now let's focus in on the Leatt 6.5. This is the full carbon version. It's very, very lightweight. Like I said, 2.95 pounds in a size medium. And the difference between a full carbon shell versus a composite, do you really need to spend the extra money? Well, the difference is this. The carbon fiber shell is actually a little bit stronger. Of course, it's a little bit lighter. However, the fiberglass in the composite is actually a little bit more flexible to give a little bit more, so essentially it's going to resist cracking. Now, the decision is up to you whether you want that flashy carbon fiber look, but that's the difference between the two. So, like I said, 10% smaller equals 20% less in rotational forces. They're also utilizing the 360 turbine technology, which are these little discs made out of this stuff called armor gel. It's super impact absorbent, and essentially it does two things. It's going to reduce head impact by up to 30% and reduce rotational force by 40%. So you can see how these little things really work. This helmet also flows the most amount of air that I've ever seen before on a helmet. You have massive intake channels in the front. On the top, you have these huge intake ports, and then you have the huge exhaust ports. And you can see that it has this honeycomb design. Well, this is to create strength in such a design as this. And the other great thing about this is the EPS liner. Although it's your standard EPS in different densities, it's actually sprayed into the helmet. So it's going to go all the way into all of these voids in these channels. So that's going to reduce any negative space for the liner system. And it's also in this V-shaped. So that's going to disperse the amount of energy caused in the event of a crash. Very cool design. Again, less helmet equals less mass. The GPX also has another feature that isn't on any other helmet. You have a hydration ready slot here, so you're going to take your hose, route it through the underside of the chin bar, and it's readily available. You don't have to cut or do any modifications to the helmet. Now let's focus in on the 6D. We're going to talk about price first because it does jump up from here. $745 is the entry-level price for the composite version. If you're looking for a full 3K carbon version, it's going to set you back another $100. So again, remember what I told you about the carbon versus the composite. Now, the 6D technology. You're actually going to have two layers of EPS. You have a little space in between with all these rubber dampeners. That's the ODES, the omnidirectional suspension. So it's going to address both rotational and linear crashes. And the great thing about this system is that it works immediately. It doesn't take a certain G-force to activate that EPS liner. It's going to work the moment the head hits the EPS liner. Now, with that being said, That technology doesn't allow this helmet to get any smaller, so that's why this is one of the largest shells on the market. But then if we remember back to the beginning of the video, it's still in line with the weight. So 3.4 pounds, it's still really competitive. And the other thing about this helmet is that it's only DOT approved. They didn't decide to go with any higher ratings because they don't want to get into a harder, more rigid shell. And there's a few other things beyond that. You can read more about it at shapmoto.com. Now the ventilation system is just as good because you have that space in between those two EPS liners that's going to allow all that air to flow through and then channel through the holes in that EPS liner and then exiting out of the back of the helmet. So the flow through effect is incredible on this helmet. As you can see, these helmets address the same issue in completely different ways. So now let's check out the last two helmets on our list. So I've saved what I think is the best for last. These are my two top picks, and don't get me wrong, the other helmets that I've showed you are fantastic, but I favor these more. So let's talk about the differences, because there really isn't a whole lot of similarities, other than the fact of the DOT and SNELL rating and the concept of saving you in the event of a crash. They're both completely different, and they do things in a completely different way. Let's address the SE4 first. Now, as you can see, the outer shell is super compact. Keep in mind again that this is a size large compared to a medium. That's because they're using 4 different shell sizes throughout their range to get that shell as small, lightweight, and compact as can be. They're also utilizing a carbon Kevlar blend, so that's what's going to keep it strong, durable, and again, lightweight. They're also using a triple density EPS liner. That is great because it addresses all types of crash scenarios, high speed, mid speed, and low speed crashes. Also, they've included MIPS in here. So they've really taken what was already out there and made it even better. They've also added 13% more EPS liner in the headband area, which is this frontal portion, and they've also added 8% more in the rear. So more impact protection, and they've given you more coverage by extending the back portion of the helmet down a little bit more to give you more coverage at the back of your head. The ventilation on this helmet is fantastic. It flows a ton of air. They've revamped the entire ventilation system by adding more vents, bigger channels, and the way that this thing draws the air out is really, really impressive. It's also very aerodynamic. They've added a flat spot up here so you can now mount a GoPro, unlike the Bell Moto 9 Flex, and just the looks of this thing are on point. The other great thing about the SE4 is that they're actually lining the chin bar with EPP. Now this is a softer, lighter foam that also maintains its shape, unlike EPS. Once you put your finger in there and crush it, that's it. It's going to stay like that. The EPP will go back to its original form. Now let's focus in on its competitor, the Bell Moto 9 Flex. This is definitely one of a kind, and there's nothing else like it on the market because they utilize a 3-layer progressive management system. You have 3 different layers of foam, EPS, EPP, and EPO. That right there is going to address all crash scenarios, high speed, mid speed, and low speed. Of course, in a different way than the SE4, but still addresses those issues. The airflow on this helmet is excellent because that liner is actually segmented, so it's going to allow deeper channels for that air to flow through the helmet. And being that it's segmented, it's also going to address rotational force by being able to slip about 5 millimeters in each way. And while it's segmented, it's also going to fit in different shaped heads because it's going to flex and conform to that specific rider. Now with that being said, the chin bar is lined with EPS, so you get great frontal protection. I prefer the EPP, but it's still another safety aspect. This helmet also has the flying bridge feature, which is no connective point in the center, so that's going to create less drag and more airflow. Then if we take a look at the liner, this is the X-Static XT2. So this has silver that's been woven right into the fabric, and silver has this natural antimicrobial and antibacterial feature to it. So no matter how many times you wash this liner, it's still going to be with the fabric rather than washing out over time. So that's a great feature about this. Now let's talk about the price because it's pretty competitive to the SE4. An entry-level price on the Bell Moto 9 Flex is $599 for a solid white color. If you're looking for a graphic, it jumps up to $649, right in line with the TLD helmet. If you want something like this special edition monster graphic, it's going to set you back $699. That's going to wrap up our head-to-head premium off-road helmet comparison. I wanted to pull out the key highlighted features to help you with your buying decision. Now me, if I was going to take a pick, I would go definitely with the SE4. This is my favorite out of the bunch, and I was super impressed when I first saw this helmet hit the market. So for more info on all of the helmets you've seen here on this table, or more choices for that matter, head to the site shapmoto.com. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube and like this video. I'm Matt. We'll see you next time.